fashion is responsible for like 35% of the microplastics that end up in the ocean come from the fashion industry. And again, like all of like a lot of wastewater and there's just so much. Fashion is probably the third contributor to climate change. I think it's responsible for like 10% of all greenhouse gases, where the animal agriculture industry is responsible for about 30%. And a big part of that coming from methane, which is the raising of cows and animals for human consumption. And leather has this, this reputation, which it is. It's long lasting and quality and durable, but that doesn't it comes from the chemicals that it's bathed in and the toxins. And so it's a process called tanning, where again, the dead skin of an animal, it goes through this really harsh, lengthy process of chemical tanning, where humans are exposed because they're the ones that are actually tanning the leather with toxic chemicals like formaldehyde and chromium. And so that is what's making your leather products, long-lasting and durable. And so beyond that, when you're wearing those products, of course, and if you're wearing them for a long time, then that is your exposure to all of these harsh chemicals when you're putting that on your body as well. And so from a human health perspective, not just the people that are now being exposed to those situations where leather is being created, it's also people that are, cloaked in leather and being exposed to leather. It's a really unhealthy situation, which doesn't need to be.
Welcome back to Plant Fueled. As always, I'm your host, Callum Weir. Welcome back. Today's conversation steps out the kitchen and into the wardrobe. Because here's the thing, we talk a lot about what to eat, but far less about what to wear, especially when it comes to the environmental and ethical impact of fashion. That silence costs a lot more than we realise. Joining me is Desirée Dupuis, founder of VOES Co, the first vegan luxury fashion brand, built with the goal of proving you can create something iconic, sustainable and cruelty-free without compromise. She's not just designing shoes, she's reshaping an industry. We dive into the real, unfiltered conversation around fashion's impact, not just on animals, but on the people and the planet. From leather, wool, silk, to new innovations like cactus and corn leather. Desiree, she breaks down what sustainable materials actually mean in practice, and why the fashion world's obsession with eco-labels can sometimes just be smoke and mirrors. We talk about the toxic tanning process, chemical runoffs, and the hidden side of leather production, and how it harms human health just as much as the environment. But we also explore the hopes, the brands, the technologies, the communities, building a new type of fashion that doesn't rely on the suffering of good. This conversation is about sustainability, creativity, courage, the one it takes to challenge one of the most influential and destructive industries on the planet, and build something that genuinely does better. But before we get into it, if you've ever justified a leather product as timeless or thought sustainable just meant organic cotton, do yourself a favour, hit follow, leave a review, give a star rating, subscribe, whatever the platform you use allows you to do. Or maybe share this episode with somebody that's still stroking their cow-skinned handbag, like it's some heirloom. It helps grow the show, and it's cheaper than your next Zara haul. Let's get into it with Desiree. Let's dive in. Peace and plants. Desiree, welcome.
Callum, I'm here. We're across seas now.
We're across seas, yeah. This would have 6 months ago maybe. This would have been great to do in person. However, the timings didn't align apparently.
I think the timeline is perfect.
I love that. Also, first off, I want to congratulate you because you got your company into Walmart, which I assume that's like a huge and massive feat. Like that's not every company that manages to get especially an ethical and sustainable and vegan brand, and especially like a high-end fashion brand doesn't usually get a spot there. Like I know it's hard enough to get food products there, let alone like fashion brands. So congratulations.
Thank you. It's very exciting. Yeah, I mean, I think what you said nailed it, like ethical and sustainable. I think, this is the future. This is, what especially large companies and industry is looking for. So I do check a lot of boxes, female owned, Canadian, and I don't know if you've heard or watched any of what's going on between Canada and the States, but we're in a bit of a trade war. And so Canadians we have this term called elbows up. So Canadians are trying to support Canadian brands. So that is, it's a very big accomplishment, a huge milestone for my company, VOES Co. And so thank you. Yeah, it's really exciting.
Is that a lot of work, like a lot of effort to try get something in a shop like that? Because I'm guessing it's like consistent banging your head against the wall trying to get these things done. Because I know when it comes to, as I said, food, getting it into like a supermarket or a retail chain is so hard. So I can imagine getting like something that would be considered niche at first into like the spotlight can be, I assume, quite hard.
Yeah, well, there's two things. One, it's an online marketplace to start. So you're right. Like if I was getting into like a spot, like a shelf space
Mm.
spot in their store, I imagine that would be a lot more difficult. And I do also own a vegan seaweed based food brand. So I've been in the CPG space with food, and getting shelf space in retail is the gold standard, right? It's the hardest thing. Usually you need a distributor and a broker and to sell you in. So the fascinating thing about this Walmart story and milestone is that I got an email one day. I wasn't even trying. I'm actually not even really ready to be in retail, to be honest. But it landed in my inbox, and it was a Canada Walmart marketplace listing opportunity. And I had some reservations because we are vegan, we are on the higher end, accessible premium is what I try to say. And Walmart is kind of known as like cheaper, low end products, and so I wasn't sure about the brand positioning. But when I had a call with the buyer, she just informed me that their online marketplace buyer is young, urban, affluent, professional, and are looking to fill that space with some more higher end products. And also, again, in Canada, we've lost our biggest retailers. So that we had like the Hudson's Bay Company, which was like our biggest retailer for over 100 years. Also, Nordstrom and Target have tried to come in Canada and just haven't succeeded. And so I think Walmart is being smart and really taking advantage of that white space. And so yeah, I would love to share how hard I've worked. And I was like, I've shared this with a few friends and been like, I didn't do anything. But then in hindsight, it's like all like the 5 years of like everything I've done, with VOES Co getting me to this point. So I feel like it's all the things behind the scenes that I've been doing for the business that have gotten me this listing, but it wasn't like banging my head against the wall. Like literally it just came out of nowhere. And so I'm giving it a shot, and we'll see what happens. And like I said, it is a lot easier because it's just an online listing. So it's not as, I guess, like, yeah, I'm not taking up very, like rich shelf space in a brick and mortar store. Eventually, maybe we'll see. But yeah, so it just came to me, which is wild.
I guess that kind of shows like, the compounding evidence over time. It's kind of like you've done the work, you've done the like 5 years of trying to do this, and like things start to happen over time, and it's not just like this overnight thing that it just happens. It's like you've been the example of kind of like working until it kind of comes to you in the end.
Yeah, I think that's the misconception that a lot of people have in terms of like when things go viral, or like when celebrities or like artists just all of a sudden blow up, and it's like, oh, that person is an overnight success. They came out of nowhere, but you don't see the 5 to 10 years of them like, yeah, slogging it out at like the club for 20 people, or like all the behind the scenes effort that goes into it. So yeah, like I said, there was a lot of preparation that's been going on. And I think it just shows maybe the time that we're in, where I do check a lot of boxes for them. Like people are looking for independent, values driven brands that are animal free, vegan. And I started the brand because most vegan fashion is just, petroleum based plastics. And so we are really trying to be vegan and sustainable, so better for the planet. And obviously that's such like a term that's thrown around. There's so much greenwashing, and what does it really mean? But yeah, so yeah, it's super exciting, and we'll see what happens. And hopefully it just goes to show that it is like where, to be in a large retailer like that, hopefully that's just showing where there is demand and consumers are looking for these types of products, which is very reassuring for people like you and I to know that this vegan movement can and should be the future, and giving consumers what the younger generation is looking for.
Mm. I've actually obviously seen some of your products in real life, or your white Chelsea boots. So, and like, I think especially when it comes to like vegan fashion, when it comes to creating a brand that has obviously animals, ethics, sustainability at the root of its core, some companies, although they mean so well, will kind of like boldly throw like a slogan or the word vegan on front of it. And I guess that only caters to a certain few people that want that. And it can kind of be off-putting to the general public, which of course is great for some people if they want that. But however, you managed to create like a brand as such that, if anything, looks sleek, it looks modern, it looks minimal, it looks aesthetically pleasing to the eye without overly having like forceful messaging, I guess.
Right. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm just trying to solve my own problem because, I basically went vegan. I read, it was for nutrition reasons. Like I was reading a book called Skinny Bitch, and it slapped back in the middle of the book was all this information on like where meat and animal products come from, which I was not expecting. So from the day of reading that book in June 2008, which is what, like 17 years ago now, I basically went vegan because I stopped eating animal products. I stopped wearing animal products. The food was easy because I would say I was already pretty much primarily plant-based, being a very healthy plant-based, or like earth foods type of person. But the fashion was, I would say, a bit more challenging and difficult because all of like luxury vegan bags or vegan fashion is, with leather. I had one shoe store that I could shop from. And again, it was just like synthetic. Luckily, it's cheap. So it was like cheap stuff. But I always say, like, same with food. Like, just because I'm vegan doesn't mean I don't want to like be stylish or look cool. Or just because I'm vegan doesn't mean I want to enjoy delicious food. And so for me, it was just like that pain point. Like, I want beautiful, gorgeous shoes, and I want them to look good and be stylish and be comfortable and all the things we expect, footwear to be. But let's make it animal free, and let's also make it, better for the environment. And so that's kind of been my MO, and I'm grateful to hear you say that. But the other thing over that, like about 7 years that I was living a vegan lifestyle before I had this vision and this idea to create VOES, which stands for vegan. The V is for veganism and the OES is for shoes. Was that I didn't want to buy just like a vegan product from a non-vegan brand because my values aren't aligned. Like I'm still, if I do that, if I buy a pair of vegan Doc Martens, let's say, I'm still supporting a leather-based company. So I just like, I don't feel good about that. And so I just craved, we have these big iconic brands, global brands like Nike or like a Lululemon, and they have a logo and an icon that stands for something and is easily recognizable. By the time, in 2015, 2016, when I was just like getting frustrated with not having a good brand to support, I'm like, where's the internationally known, recognizable vegan brand that stands for veganism through and through, that's never going to hurt animals? And I'm just like, there isn't one. And because I was craving stylish leather-like footwear and bags and jackets and pants, and craved a vegan brand that represented my values, because it didn't really exist, I was like, I guess I have to do it myself. And so it's just everything to do with the brand is solving my own personal pain point. And because I'm from Vancouver, Canada, I wear Chelsea boots, like 90% of the year. So I just started with the Chelsea boot, also some UK ties there. And just wanted to create shoes that I could wear all the time that wouldn't go out of season and that would look cool with every outfit. And, I have been in Bali for 1 year, and I've only brought my own shoes with me. So I have a pair of Chelsea boots and I have a pair of sneakers, and it's like, what day is it? Is it a sneaker day or is it a Chelsea boot day? And also 80 to 90% of the time in Bali, I'm still wearing my Chelsea boots. So here we are.
Which I think shows the durability of them, because I mean, the last year or so in Bali has just been the most wild weather. Like, it's either been hot, it's been cold, it's been raining, there's been like some monsoon, there's things going on constantly. So for people that I think there's a big misconception that, vegan clothing doesn't last as long or it's not as durable. Whereas, if you can live in a country like, or a place like Bali, with all that weather and all those different changes constantly, and that's still thriving, like there's a lot to say about that.
Yeah, it's been a wild year. We were waiting for dry season all year and it never really came. And now I feel like it's still wet season, or it's wet season again, and the humidity and everything. So it's definitely been And I always, when like you go somewhere and someone's like, oh, you brought the rain or you brought the sun, being from Vancouver where it's like literally rainy all the time. I'm like, did I bring the rain to Bali? Like everyone's like, we haven't had a rainy season like this in years. It's like been dry for so long. And I'm like, leave it to the Vancouver girl to come and like bring all the rain. So yeah.
I think a lot of people are still wondering to this day, because obviously, yes, we think about food as obviously stop eating meat, it's not good for the environment, but I don't think people think too much about fashion or what they're actually putting on their body. And I think there's my whole audience, or most of the audience they think about what they're putting in their body, but what we put on, that's the second biggest choice we do in a day is what we put on normally. And there's so many different parallels between that. So what is stupid question, but what is wrong with animal products on clothing?
Well, I mean, I thank you for bringing this up because the question and the conversation is so complex. First of all, let me like try to address this, I guess, in multiple phases. But I think first of all, besides human health, the problem with animal agriculture and leather and suede and animal products like wool being a part of fashion, it actually is what I would consider a co-product of the animal agriculture industry, which is responsible for, like the biggest driver of climate change, in my opinion, and in many, many scientists' opinion, the biggest contributor to the destruction of the Amazon. And so you have all of these problems with animal agriculture in general, and fashion is a big component of that because, the demand for leather and animal products just makes it more desirable, makes it more profitable, and just helps to propel and drive the industry. So beyond the fact that, we want to get away from animal agriculture with food, with fashion, with any area of our life where we don't have to. Like nowadays, there's no need for leather products or fashion that's coming from animals. And then beyond that, when you think about leather, it is the dead rotting skin of an animal, and so in order to be able to make that long lasting, and leather has this this reputation, which it's long lasting and quality and durable, but that doesn't it comes from the chemicals that it's bathed in and the toxins. And so it's a process called tanning, where again the dead skin of an animal, it goes through this really harsh, lengthy process of chemical tanning, where humans are exposed because they're the ones that are actually tanning the leather with toxic chemicals like formaldehyde and chromium. And so that is what's making your leather products, long lasting and durable. And so beyond that, when you're wearing those products, of course, and if you're wearing them for a long time, then that is your exposure to all of these harsh chemicals when you're putting that on your body as well. And so from a human health perspective, not just the people that are now being exposed to those situations where leather is being created, it's also people that are, cloaked in leather and being exposed to leather. It's a really unhealthy situation, which doesn't need to be. So again, it's like that's where now we look at veganism being more than just a diet. Of course, the biggest thing we do is eat 3 to 4 times a day. But like you said, beyond that, it's like, well, every time we go out the door or every time, what are we actually putting on our body? And fashion is probably the other biggest component when it comes to that. And so I think we also have a choice to, do better for animals, but then for our own health as well, look at products that are healthier, more organic, don't contain these harsh chemicals that are needed and required to produce leather.
I think there's a big thing there that people obviously assume that it is just the cow, but don't realize there's like a whole industry after that where there's also humans at risk there as well, with obviously the tanning and the chemicals. Like it's not just cows, humans, it's various other consequences that go along line, like especially with then everything being rinsed out with water and that just going wherever it is, being flushed away somewhere, and that's full of chemicals. So there's huge issues surrounding the whole industry without it just being the animal. Like that's a huge issue in its part. But like when you then go down the line more and more and more and more, there's just so many different crazy things that are happening.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And it just feels like it's just completely unnecessary. And so, again, for me, especially now that, so the other part that's not necessarily vegan, but like the sustainability part is, again, we kind of touched on it, but like, even with like, I don't want to just, okay, not wear leather products, but then wear like plastic products because, fashion is responsible for like 35% of the microplastics that end up in the ocean come from the fashion industry. And again, like all of like a lot of wastewater and just, there's just so much. Fashion is probably the third contributor to climate change. I think it's responsible for like 10% of all greenhouse gases, where the animal agriculture industry is responsible for about 30%. And a big part of that coming from methane, which is the raising of cows and animals for human consumption. And so my goal also is now to also reduce plastic and especially microplastics, getting away from anything poly. So, the polyesters, in shoes, it would be polyurethane or polyvinyl chloride, PVC or PU. And so that's really, again, like my mission. And so nowadays that we have so much innovation happening in the space with what's called next generation materials. So I'm able to use materials made from cactus or from corn leather. And now there's companies innovating that are 100% plastic free using agricultural waste and rubber. And it's really, really exciting. And I know the argument is, there's so many pros that people think for let's going back to leather about like the longevity and the sustainability. And what I always say to people is that, like it might not be able to go head to head with regards to like longevity or even quality. Like we're still getting there. We know that the pleathers and the plastic leathers of the past were, not the most durable or what have you. But I just think if we have an option to choose outside of the animal agriculture industry, the more we invest and buy from that type of option, then the more we can actually get better. You know what I mean? Like vegan food, which I always find this conversation interesting because at the end of the day, vegan food is just like a carrot or a banana or an apple. It's like, food from the earth that we eat all the time. But let's just say like the vegan food that's trying to replace traditional animal food, like meat patties, burgers, even the milks that have come out, like we are night and day from where we were 10 years ago. You know what I mean? Like you would be hard pressed to go out and have a good vegan hot dog or a good vegan burger or even, a really creamy milk or ice cream. But because people have invested in that, consumers have purchased those products, we have come so far where you take your family out for dinner and don't tell them you're going to a vegan spot and they're ranting and raving about how good it is until you tell them that it's vegan and they're like, oh, that wasn't that good. Ew, you took me to that place. But anyways, it's like it's come so far. So same thing is I always say, like fashion, leather is the new meat. Like I just feel like the more consumers are educated, the more we choose the alternative options, the more the industry is just going to keep continuing to advance and we will be able to rival traditional leather products and it'll just be a thing of the past. Because if we have the option to not support the devastation of the animal agriculture industry, like why would we not do that?
I think that there's a huge point that you mentioned there, which was vegan leather and pleather. And obviously that's a huge topic and whether or not that's sustainable. And I think for a lot of people do get mixed up with vegan leather and pleather being the same thing, but pleather also being, was I know at first, or when the movement started, getting bigger and bigger, a lot of things just kind of went to like a plastic lining instead. And what are the issues there really? Because I assume when we're talking about, cactus leather, apple leather, corn leather, all the different leathers that you see now, they are very different in comparison to the plastic leather with the plastic bags you get, and which people also are considered vegan.
Well, yeah, that's where the conversation gets interesting, right? Because vegan, and for me, I would still rather tend to, like I did, 10 times out of 10, I will choose the pleather option because at least I'm not, because when you're vegan for the animals for ethical reasons, which is what veganism is, you're still going to choose the animal-free choice. But the difference is we just know that it wasn't very high quality. It's literally plastic leather. So it was the things that I mentioned, the poly, the the polyurethane and just a thin plastic coating that didn't last. And so what's happening now with the technology and the innovation is that we are getting to the point where we can make the polymers, which is basically like the binding agent, much more plant-based. And with the plant leathers, that what's called the next generation plant-based leathers, which started with cactus leather and pineapple leather, with the first two were Deserto and Piñatex. And then now we've seen everything from apples, tomatoes, bananas, mango, like jerba, tea, everything. Mushroom, mycelium is a huge one. But typically with those and the pushback that you'll get from, the community is that, or the haters, the trolls, they'll say, well, there's still a plastic component in those, plant-based materials, and they're not wrong, but going from, let's say, 100% plastic, which is where we were with the PU and the PVC, to now, less than 30% plastic, in the worst case scenario with some of these next gen materials like Piñatex, like pineapple leather, they might still have 30% is what's called like a bio-based polyurethane. And so now that's what I mean, is that we're getting the innovation where it's getting like over 50% less plastic in each of these materials, up to, only the 30% component being plastic or a bio PU, to some of these new ones, like Uncaged Innovations is doing a collaboration with Jaguar, and their materials are 100% plastic free. And so we are moving the needle. And again, it's just the more we invest and over time, we will see much better technologies and innovations come out of the space, which is really exciting.
How do you even begin to start creating cactus leather? I feel like that is. I did have lost it. I did have a cactus leather wallet, and it was a great wallet. However, that's long gone. But yeah, and it was so durable. It was a great wallet. There was very realistically no difference between that and a leather. But I could never wrap my head around how a cactus had turned into a wallet.
Yeah. Okay, so I obviously have my white boots here. These are the ones that are made of cactus leather that I've been wearing pretty much every day, at least for the last year in Bali and beyond that. So probably 2 years now. And the guys are brilliant. It's a company from Mexico. It's called Deserto. If anyone is curious after they finish listening to this conversation, of course, can YouTube Deserto and the cactus leather. But essentially, it's a very positive sustainability story as well, because it's from the nopal cactus plant. And so the guys at Deserto, they have a ranch in Mexico where they grow the nopal cactus plant. So the benefits of this cactus ranch essentially is that cactus grows with like literally no water, so rainwater. So it's just in the desert. There's no water requirement. They are able to cut the mature leaves off the cactus plant, which then will regenerate itself for at least 8 more seasons. And so you're using a regenerative plant, just cutting off the natural leaf from this nopal cactus plant. They're able to use like heavy machinery and technology to turn it into like a pulp that and then they make it onto sheets. And then there is that like backing, which is about a 30% of the total material, which is the bio poly backing to give it a bit more quality and durability, especially like a little bit of, and even with leather too, it's like a very similar process to make it more like water resistant, rain resistant. And so, yeah, from a sustainability standpoint, it takes, for 1 kilogram of leather alone to be produced, it takes 17,000 liters of water. And with something like cactus leather, it's less than 1,000. So already, just from a water perspective, cactus leather versus traditional animal leather is 90% less water, 90% less carbon emissions, and you're supporting this kind of like regenerative plant like the cactus that's growing on this ranch. So it's just such a beautiful, like no harm, positive story, and to be able to create gorgeous products. Like you said, yeah, I've seen some of the wallets. There's various different brands and companies like mine working with cactus leather. So again, that just helps, with the innovation and propel the industry to keep making it better and better and softer. Like people are, and breathable too. I think that's the other problem with like pleather or like the original plastic leathers, was just that like they're not comfortable, not breathable. Whereas these leathers, they like, again, I wouldn't be able to wear them all day in the heat and humidity in Bali if like the leather wasn't breathing and my feet weren't able to feel like comfortable. But super breathable, very soft, and the colors and the texture that they're able to create too with the cactus leather is just, it's remarkable, to be honest. Like it's fascinating. Yeah.
Mm. Is that the same process with like corn leather as well? I'm guessing that just comes from, I assume that just comes from the food corn and it isn't just the plant.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's another benefit. There's a few different suppliers making the corn leather, and most of it is coming from waste from like the food and the like food waste, which is another beautiful story. So a lot of these plant-based materials, cactus leather, corn leather, mango leather, they're actually repurposing waste from the food industry. So it's, yeah, again, there's like it's not taking away food. It's just, yeah, it's almost like upcycling.
I do think there is a lot of companies out there that kind of throw around, vegan leather, and 90% of them is kind of like using that kind of guilt-free label. They're doing a lot of greenwashing because people assume, vegan leather is like, or just saying things are vegan that's gonna draw people in with the more sustainable route. But I don't think a lot of companies obviously have these things at heart. That is very much just kind of, going with what they see maybe trending at the moment, instead of actually going from like a point of view of let's actually do something that's going to provide help. And then, later on down the line, like you said with Doc Martens, great, they have vegan shoes, but doesn't really mean anything when Doc Martens' main source of income is predominantly just cows.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I don't feel good about that. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to give my money to people that are helping to drive animal agriculture. And again, that's why we're like vegan through and through for ethical reasons, but also trying to be more mindful and healthier for the planet. Because like we've said, like vegan does not mean sustainable. Vegan, like from your side of it, the food side of it, doesn't mean healthy. Yes, if you eat whole foods from the earth, but Oreos are vegan. So if you're just surviving off of Oreos, are you healthy vegan? No. But again, like it's all about, veganism is really at its core is all about the animals. And that also was my pain point, because I had this idea, this vision, that VOES Co, the V with the ampersand, our icon could be the internationally recognized icon for veganism. And when I had this thought, it was like, well, it's the ampersand is for and, so it's vegan and it's vegan and better for the environment. It's vegan and inclusive. It's but I kind of sat on it. I'm sure I was just like, my nervous system was just like scared and protecting me, because this is not an easy industry to be a spokesperson for. And so I sat on the idea for like 4 or 5 years, and that's exactly when the vegan movement from like 2015 to 2019, we just saw it like take off, right? And I think it's because what I say, like the 3 waves of veganism. So the original wave of people that have always been vegan, vegetarian for the animals, right? And it never really like, moved that far along. We started to like get some documentaries where maybe the movement grew a little bit, but not really. And then you have like the second wave of people, which I call the environmentalists. And so when documentaries like Cowspiracy came out and people really understood the connection between like climate change and the environment and animal agriculture, then you had all of these people start to, go vegan because of the environment. So that really helped propel the movement. But then I would say from like 2015 to 2019, in 2019, there's a movie that came out called The Game Changers. And that movie made it very personal for people, because now it was all about personal health, and people were seeing that not only just the negative consequences of animal products like meat and dairy, red meat specifically, and the harm that it can do, being carcinogens and, like heart issues and diabetes and all these things that could be attributed to animal products. But you also now see on the flip side, people actually thriving and benefiting, all these like athletes and bodybuilders that were thriving on a vegan diet. And so I think that's where you just saw the boom of veganism take off, because now it's like, what's in it for me, right? Because it's like, it's all good and great to do something for animals or for the planet, but let's be honest, most people, want to do what's best for them. And then as soon as human health is taken into the equation, I think that's what really, turned the needle. But for me, having this idea, and then I saw all these big brands like Adidas and even the store that I shop from called Spring, all of a sudden having a vegan label on it, and and making all these products with this idea that I had for 4 years. I was just kind of like, damn it, like this is my idea, I need to do something about it. And so that's when I really got like my wings to fly and be like, no, I am vegan for the right reasons, and I'm doing this, for my people, for the animals, and for the planet. And so, but yeah, has been interesting to see that evolution of it just becoming mainstream. And then I don't know what your thoughts are about where we are now. It feels like we came so far, and then it almost feels like a retraction.
Yeah, I have quite a few thoughts on it. I think that I don't think, if anything, I think we are in a bubble where we also see, especially on Instagram and Facebook and things like that, we're in a bubble where we only see the content we kind of want to see. So, and
Right.
when people kind of go against it or go like, go back or carnivore or whatever, we kind of feel disheartened.
Yeah.
I think that gets shown more to you than the actual, the stuff that actually makes a difference. However, I think a lot of people don't like to call themselves vegan anymore. I think it's a polarized term, and I think more people would consider themselves plant-based without using the word. But also, we do see all these companies closing down or going bankrupt. And is that the case because it's dying? I don't think so. I think it's the fact that supermarkets or have their own chains, and they've managed to cultivate things and make it so much cheaper to underprice and undercut every other brand. So things like Beyond Meat, and you can go to like Walmart and get like another version of a burger for a lot cheaper, and then obviously that nobody's buying the Beyond, and then their money goes down. And I think we're not looking too much into the kind of like trends of things, and we're just kind of like assuming just veganism is dying. And I think there's a lot of variations, whether that be restaurants now adding just good vegan options to their menus, so vegan restaurants don't need to exist as much because they cater to everyone now with these options.
Right. Yeah, true.
So I don't think necessarily it's dying. I think people are more scared to say they're vegan because it's still a very polarizing term, and it gets, especially in places like the States and the UK more than anywhere else, it's very kind of like you say it, and it's there's something wrong with you. I think there was an upward trajectory for like 4 years, and then it's kind of just like spiraled off. But I don't think it's dying. I think things have changed, and I think things have evolved, and restaurants, brands, clothing, food, etc., has just taken a different stance.
Yeah, that's very well said. I totally agree with you, and it's a really good perspective, because I think the good thing about it is that now it has become mainstream, and so it's not uncommon. Like, yeah, pretty much everywhere you go out to eat now, you're not just have to have like a green salad or French fries like we used to back in the day, or like even these companies, these brands, these leather companies that are now providing a vegan option. It's almost kind of like you have to have a vegan option because they want to capture that part of the market, which is obviously goes to show for something that there's enough of us, or enough demand for us. And the reason I mentioned, like, going back to the beginning of our conversation about when I had the call with the buyer at Walmart, and her telling me like their online shopper is younger and urban, and for me, I do focus a bit more on the younger generation, because I feel like like the 40 plus, like the Gen X and above, is just kind of like has grown up with animal agriculture just being the norm and the default. And for them to change, it's quite huge. But as this younger generation is just, first of all, they're exposed to the truth from day one, that, you can get any information at any time. Whereas, when I was growing up, it was like all just like ads telling you to drink a glass this big of milk for dinner, and that's where you get your calcium, and just like so much BS from the dairy and the meat industries, where now it's like at least people that are younger now don't have to be brainwashed for 25, 30 years, 40 years before they realize, what's actually happening and what nutrients provide us with what food. So I do focus a lot more on, like the under 40 generation, because I feel like, especially even the younger ones, because I do feel like they're the ones that are carrying the weight of climate change on them. And we're seeing it in the world, like every minute, there's like flooding and extreme like weather situations. I can only imagine being a young person, 20 years old right now, and feeling like, fuck, like what's happening with my future? And, like veganism is just proven through and through and through. Like animal agriculture is such a driver of climate change. Like if we have beautiful, luxurious shoe choices, if we have gorgeous food that we can make and create, if we can go to restaurants and have a vegan options, like that to me is just going to become more and more, as it should be, the default. And I'm starting to say this more and more. I said it 5 years ago and I kind of forgot about it, but I'm saying it again, is that I do believe, because I'm getting re-inspired having conversations with people like you, that like I also attribute to like eating meat, smoking. Like back in the day when I was growing up, like my parents, every single person smoked. I went to university, people were smoking in the university in France, smoking on airplanes. You'd go out to the bar, you just like everyone was smoking, and it was cool. You know what I mean? If you went to high school, the cool kids are the smokers, and then it was like, man, I'm so cool, I smoke. And then all of this information came out, how bad and detrimental it is to like smoke. It's causing lung cancer, it's causing all these things. And I think in like, in healthy society, it's kind of shunned upon to smoke. It's almost like embarrassing to say that you smoke. And so now there's like, you can't smoke in a restaurant. Maybe there might be a smoking section, but pretty much you're like outside around the back alley smoking if you want to have a cigarette. And so my dream is that like all of the restaurants, everywhere you go, is like default vegan. If you want to have some meat, then you got to go like to the meat room around the corner and like embarrassingly sneak some like meat into your diet. So that's my thoughts on like the future of veganism and animal agriculture.
I think you really hit the nail on the head there as well, with especially when it comes to the younger generation, because unlike when you were younger, when I was younger, you had to go look for this information. You'd have to go look in a book, or the internet wasn't the internet back then. It was a few pages. Whereas the younger generation have access to all the information on the planet, like on their fingertips. Like you go onto TikTok, you can search whatever you want, and you'll find whatever you need. You go online, and you can find whatever you need. Like, and I think that so much more. They know how to do their research a lot more than the older generation as well, on like the things that they feel opinionated about. They can form their opinions in the best way because they have all the information and can make the right decision. Whereas obviously the older generation, they were shown, milk adverts, they were shown meat adverts. There was a lot of marketing around it. And also with that, like you've been marketed for, let's say 40 years to drink milk, and then you're told it's bad for you, that you're kind of like, well, have I just been lied to my whole entire life? I'm probably not going to change now, because I don't know if I believe this, because this seems a bit new and a bit kind of foreign to me, that this whole now milk's bad, and I've been doing it for 40 years and I'm absolutely fine, and my mum gave it to me and my mum wouldn't want me to be unhealthy, those kind of things. And it's just, I feel like there's a lot of cognitive dissonance when it comes to even like the science around certain things, like meat products, animal products, just things that people are so used to. But the younger generation now have so much more, and they've got like new innovations as well. So like if they had to choose between cow leather or cactus leather, they have the situation there to choose between the two, because they can find out exactly what goes into the two. Whereas years ago, I don't think you would have found that information so readily available.
No, exactly. And again, it's like, and if you have the option and it's like same, looks the same, feels the same, like why wouldn't you not take the animal-free option or the more sustainable option? Because nowadays, a lot of the things that are like, because even though I say vegan doesn't mean sustainable, I still believe that vegan versus animal agriculture is always going to be more sustainable.
Absolutely.
Because again, you're not, cutting down trees to make land, to grow animals and to grow food, to feed animals for human consumption. So when you take all of those things out of the equation, naturally anything that doesn't require animals to be raised for human consumption is going to be more sustainable. So if you have that option, like, why would you not? But again, to your point, like, if I've been drinking regular cow's milk for 40 years, it's so much more complex than just stop. Like, there's a habit ingrained there. There could be cultural, traditional family values. Like, it means something. I think of myself as a kid drinking milk with my parents, but then it's like, so it's so much harder to change and break those habits than when, if you're young and you already have an option for, like, especially in Bali, coconut milk, oat milk, almond milk, rice milk, soy milk, like name your flavor. You can, like, in Argentina, they've got pecan milk. They've got, what I mean? Like, it's like any nut available is whatever milk you would like, and ways to even make it at home. And yeah, it's just, to me, that's like a complete no-brainer.
Yeah, I think anything that is not animal related will always be the more sustainable option. I don't think there's a option out there where the non-animal route is the worst route. I don't think there's an option out there. Well, not that I know of. There might be like specifically a few maybe things out there, but I have no idea. You mentioned earlier, is it polyethylene? I don't know if that's the right word.
Polyurethane,
and also polyester. And I think a lot of our clothes are made up of that. And I don't know if people overly know the issues with that. And now I've come to think of it, I'm probably wearing it. I'm going to check the label, actually. It doesn't say. But I've never really thought about it until I was doing a bit of research prior, and it's actually quite worrying that a lot of our clothing is made with this. I don't think the majority of people understand what it is, what it's doing, the repercussions of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the number one material used in clothing production. And again, anything basically with a poly, it's a petroleum base, so it's derived from fossil fuels. So, it's a form of plastic, again, like chemically treated. And aside from, yeah, just like wearing it, how it, you're exposed to that material, it's obviously affecting your endocrine system, your body's natural, ability, like, to work and function. And also from just like a waste perspective, it's a material that does not break down. I mentioned earlier the microplastics. So inside of polyester is, it's just made up of tiny like microplastics, which it's now alarming. I think scientists have tracked that we're ingesting like a credit card's worth of microplastics every single week. And that's primarily coming out of your clothes. So this is like, yeah, like the plastic. I would say that's, pick your battles. Is like animal agriculture like the most detrimental thing? Is, the plastic problem the biggest epidemic of our lifetime? Probably both, and so again, why I'm trying to like do animal free and plastic free at the same time. But plastic is a massive problem. Again, from a human health perspective, anything you're wearing is going to end up, being absorbed into your body. The skin is your largest organ, essentially. So any type of lotion that you're using, but also ultimately like your clothes, it's all going to end up, yeah, it's seeping into your bloodstream. And again, from a waste perspective, it's just the piles and piles and piles and piles and piles and piles of clothing that are usually getting shipped to developing countries like Ghana. And yeah, it's just horrible. So you did say something earlier. There's probably nothing. So anything besides animal agriculture would be more sustainable. I will say the most sustainable thing to do always is to not buy anything new. Because, contributing to more production, more consumerism, that's already a habit that you can help to reduce, to be more sustainable is to buy secondhand. So the only time I will say, if you want to have a leather jacket, then buy it secondhand. Personally, I'm not going to wear dead animal skin. But I know there are environmentalists that are going to continue to wear leather, or because they already own it, or because they got it from a secondhand shop. And of course, that is definitely more sustainable to reuse, repurpose something that already exists versus buying something new, because that is definitely like a habit shift we need to also start to shift, is just this overconsumption of everything. So yeah, that's a bit of a tangent, but because sustainability is embedded into this conversation, I at least wanted to make that point.
I actually just ripped off my label to see what it is, and it is polyester.
We should have made it better. It's going to be like 9.9% chance out of 10 that it's polyester.
Yeah, it's 40% polyester. Well, I'm guessing that's
And
not
what's the
100. I'm
difference?
guessing it's good when it's not 100%. So there's something there.
There's something. Yeah.
Do you think, like, as we see, as you mentioned, with the embarrassment of people smoking these days, and I think people have kind of embarrassment from wearing fur these days as well. I think that's another one that's slowly being ripped to pieces. Like, fur is slowly dying. You can't really get exotic furs anymore. I think there's still mink furs and things like that around, but I think there's lack of people wearing them in comparison to what they used to be. Do you think later on down the line that leather is going to be seen in that same kind of embarrassing way?
Yeah, I do believe that, and I believe the EU just made a ban on fur and any type of fur product. So now you're getting legislation and governance that is also starting to move in the right direction. So yeah, I absolutely do, because it blows my mind that something that is so detrimental, has such harsh consequences, can be deemed as luxury. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, now that we know what leather is, especially calf leather, like, it's a baby fucking cow, like, and it's been stolen from its mother. And again, we've cut down 90% of the freaking rainforest in the Amazon to create these products. Like, explain to me what is luxurious about this type of product in any way, shape, or form. And so I do think, again, you know as the power, in terms of like generational power, from the older Gucci buying demographic of people, to a younger generation of, a like, I think this like social enterprise concept, like, more educated buyers, consumers are not just buying a product because it has to be like, and what? Like, I don't just buy coffee. I buy the coffee that is ethically produced, that is artisanal made, that I know a portion of my purchase is going back to the farmer, or like whatever. Like, you can't. I don't think in this day and age, to be able to compete and to last long term, you can just sell a product for selling a product's sake. I think it's like, and what are you doing for the world? We have these B Corps now. We have like social enterprises. So it's like people are demanding, okay, you have boots, and what else, right? And so I think that it's like, I don't think we're going to be able to see people just, continuing to sell leather products. And it's like, especially as more and more of these conversations start to happen, and more education comes out about animal agriculture and just the devastation that it's causing the planet. I do believe that we're starting to see it on its way out, especially now, like with things like fur and other things that were deemed luxury, that they're just like, like, that's, what luxurious is? Luxurious is slow fashion, something that is like handmade, smaller batch, animal free, contains compassion and kindness. Like, that's the new standard of luxury, in my opinion.
No, I would. That's the thing. Like, people want these luxurious items that are obviously destroying the planet, but like, when the planet's destroyed, you're not gonna be able to wear those fucking items anyway. Like, like what are you wearing them to? It's wild, and I think there's so many different pathways, and there's so many different animal like products that are slowly moving away. So I don't know if I know we're still using leather, and I know we're still using wool to an extent, and silk. I don't think silk's as big as it used to be as well, and down. But I think these things are slowly getting smaller and smaller. Obviously, there's going to be places and situations where those things are still used in large amounts, but I think you're seeing things slowly kind of fade over time or get smaller anyway.
Yeah, and again, I think it comes down to every time you buy something, you're voting for the type of world you want to see. When someone buys products from me, that investment goes into innovation. And so the more money we have, the more we can invest, the more we develop alternative products. Now there are alternative down. There's so many better alternatives now for down products that we don't have to buy down jackets or what have you, even with silk and stuff like that. And so I think, yeah, there's all these pillars that come together, the awareness, the education from consumers, the technology and the ability to innovate from brands and suppliers. And that's the meeting point of the intersection of those types of things is where now we're starting to see these industries kind of flourish. But yeah, I mean, I think we also just need some influencer life is real. You know what I mean? People are influenced. And I think if we had some really cool, influencers on our side, and that's kind of my role too, my job with my company is just to make vegan so freaking cool that you would not choose otherwise. And Billie Eilish is doing a really good job of being an influencer for the younger generation. And I think if we, anytime the Kardashians or somebody mentions that they're vegan or they chose a vegan product, you see these booms. And so I think we also just need the vegan movement just needs a bit more positive PR to make it cool and to make it the new standard of luxury and to show up on the red carpet and vegan and sustainable items that everyone is just going to go crazy for. So I think as soon as we kind of get that piece nailed down too, then it will just the old ways of doing things will just start to become obsolete.
You mentioned earlier that obviously most brands, if they want to survive, need to start doing things for the planet, because otherwise it's just kind of a one shot and then you're kind of done. And I think you're seeing that as well with places like Patagonia. Patagonia did that whole they're a long lasting brand, but they also gave all their shares to they doing good for the world. And I think a lot of companies are now having to be shown to do something. Otherwise, it's very much it was, even if you look at the bigger companies Nike or Adidas or Adidas, depending where you're from, they're all starting to make slight little changes to make things more environmentally friendly. Even if it's not the biggest of changes, they always have a social presence, a presence to kind of be looking to help someone or help undo something. And I think that's kind of that is very much going to be the longevity of things later on down the line, because I don't see places like the Temus and the Sheens and the Boohoo's and the ASOS's, although they're fast fashion, there's only so much they can pump out without having so much bad press that people start to kind of deter and kind of move on from them at some point. It may be further on down the line, and it's not going to be an overnight thing, but with the amount of shit that comes out from those people, and the more we become aware and the more we look into climate change and being more sustainable, I think things are going to start shifting away from those and go to these places where, yes, they may be more expensive, but you're also getting more bang for your buck, and also at the same time, these things are probably going to last you a lot longer than the t-shirt that's going to last you 5 washes. And it's fine.
I mean, at the end of the day, there's always a cost, right? If something is cheap, there's a cost. It's either a human cost, it's a planet cost, it's an animal cost. Something is being sacrificed. There's no way you can make a shirt for $5 without where's the human labor in that, right? Or it's it's the mass production. And so again, I think it's one of those things that I think you find this sweet spot of consumers when they they get old enough to start to really care. And I don't know, again, with this younger generation, what that age is, because I really didn't start to care until I was in my 30s, let's be honest. Um, and because I didn't grow up with the weight of climate change, I just thought, everything is fine, right? Let's just I can do whatever I want. It doesn't impact anybody else. But I think now, so it's like this, again, this intersection of when the awareness that happens amongst people and the financial ability to also do something about it, because it is hard when you're younger, like in your 20s. You do need to buy a $5 shirt because you don't have a lot of money. So as you start to have a bit of money and you get to decide what you want to do with that money, you can buy a bit more of an expensive item and also know that it's like quality versus quantity. And so I think that that's a bit of part of the equation. But yeah, making things like thrifting, upcycling, secondhand. Again, I think brands, yeah, consumers are demanding more. Like, it's not, you need to stand for something. Like, what else are you doing? Yeah, you sell a great pen. What are you doing for the world? You know what I mean? Why is your pen because most commodities now are, brands are telling a story. They are doing something. They are giving back. They are, even this pen, it's from paper clip, it's made of cork or whatever. So I'm like, okay, they're a more sustainable company. I will buy, this pen from them because there's a bit more of a story there. So, and because they're doing this, then now the other pen companies kind of have to get on board too, because it's like the new standard. It's the new norm. It's like, so yeah, what else are you doing besides just selling a product? So I think that that's a cool thing that we're seeing. And even for myself, like when I buy my stuff, it's like, okay, and so easy. Like you said, like I'm at the till ready to buy something. I can voice note, hey chat, tell me everything you know about this brand paperclip and their pens. And it'll be like, oh, hey, Desiree, thanks for asking. Blah, 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 blah. And I'd be like, okay, cool. I feel good about this purchase. Or I'm like, oh God, really? Like, maybe I'll just wait a minute.
Yeah, I think people are moving on. I think people can see through the greenwashing now as well. Yeah, like at first I don't think we could, because it was kind of new and people didn't really understand sustainability, didn't or ethical treatment towards things, and everybody jumped on that kind of greenwashing bandwagon. Every supermarket, and now everybody says it. So not every supermarket can be doing exactly that, and because otherwise it wouldn't also be sustainable again. So it's very much like when they're like, oh, this is sustainably sourced, but if every shop is like, this is sustainably sourced, then it's definitely not, because you're all doing it, so it's all exactly the same. So I think people are more cautious, and especially you have the information, you speak to ChatGPT or whatever, and it would be like, hey, this is probably, I mean, he's good for some things, he's going to be bad for some things as well, because he's only getting the information he's getting, but at the same time, there's going to be, you're able to make these better choices, and even if it's a slow process to making those better choices, you're able to make them with more informed information, instead of just being sold to by a brand, sold to by whatever else. Because as you mentioned earlier, as we did, Doc Martens, yes, they got a sustainable, ethical, vegan leather shoe, but it doesn't really mean anything when you only sell two of them. You sell two choices, but the rest is still, but they will market that as, this is now the greener choice, we're very green as a company. However, you're still making 200 other shoes that are made from cows. So I don't think that really negates having two shoes made of whatever it's made of.
Yeah. Well, I 100% agree, and not to beat this one to the death, but again, the word sustainable is so overused. It's hard to find something that doesn't have the word sustainable on it. So I'm like, what? Now everything is just sustainable. So the word has lost all of its value pretty much. And I'm sorry, but anything that is not vegan is not sustainable. Because if you are using animal agriculture, animals to create anything, let's just go back to the basics. You are clearing out land to raise animals, to plant and grow food, to feed those animals, to kill for any type of food or fashion. That whole situation is not sustainable. And so when leather companies all birds, their merino wool is more sustainable. I'm like, you're full of shit. Because there's no way that raising animals for human consumption for any type of product is a sustainable solution. So that's the end.
There is this misconception though that like, you know, like the cows are being eaten anyway, like why not have that skin? But I don't think a lot of people realize it's two separate industries. It's not the same industry. Like it's not just a byproduct of waste. It's not like, like we've eaten the meat, the skin's just going to waste otherwise. Like it's a whole different industry, and I think that's another thing that people get really confused about and don't really understand that they're not two and the same. They are two separate.
Yeah, and even like the dairy industry is separate as well, and so you have these three, industries that are all using cows, but kind of one is leaning on the other, and so like you said, you're right. Like people that are companies, farmers, whoever is breeding cows for meat, they're not the ones taking the skin and tanning it and turning it into leather. Their cow becomes exponentially more valuable because not only do they get to, take it for the meat, they now get to sell, the skin and the leftover, parts to the leather industry, which is making their cow more profitable, which again, like drives that animal agriculture portion of it. Same with dairy. Dairy cows aren't used for meat. So when a dairy cow is done producing milk after a couple of years, that cow gets sold off to the meat producer. And again, the value of that dairy cow increases because now it's not just worth the value of milk it provides, it's worth, whatever it can be sold off for afterwards. And so when you compound these three different industries and people are demanding one or the other, it's driving the whole supply chain, or like propelling all three industries that are tied together, that are just each one providing more value to the other. And so that's where, if we start to collapse each one of them, then they become less valuable, and there's less of a, let's say, profitability or less of a potential, interest in them, because they're not as profitable. But I think that is the meat and dairy industry has done a very good job of that, again, of like using whatever terminology, greenwashing, brainwashing us to believe that it's just like a cow that lived a beautiful life that's, gets shot in the back of the head, and let's turn it into dairy, meat, and leather, and woohoo, we're making the most out of one cow. It's like, have you seen where your meat or dairy or leather comes from? Like it's outrageous. Like it's horrible to think of, what the cows are going through and that whole process. So yeah.
For the average person that does want to start making changes, they want to be more sustainable with their fashion. They want to just become more sustainable. Like, how would you guide them towards making the better choice? Because it's all right just being like, hey, just stop wearing whatever, just stop eating this, stop eating that. But like, eat like kind of easy and accessible steps for the average person that doesn't really know where to start.
Yeah. I think the first starting point is like doing an audit, like maybe over the course of a week. Go through your closet, try to learn like all of the products that you already have in your life that are derived from animals. So, if you do have leather shoes, if you have a leather jacket, if you have leather handbags, if you have leather jewelry, just doing an inventory, just like get a gauge of like where you're at and start to identify all of the things in your life that have animal products. Even your couch, is your couch made of leather? Is the seats in your vehicle made from leather? And then obviously in your daily eating habits, like what are you having for breakfast? Are you having cereal, and are you having milk? Like, is there, and then the next thing I would do is be like, what are some really like low hanging fruit options where you might be able to switch one or two things to start that would be fairly like unnoticeable. Again, if you're having milk in your coffee or milk in your cereal in the morning, can you try an alternative, to start and see where that leads? Like, I definitely think, and that's why I really don't like this like all or nothing veganism. Like, anybody that is really trying to, trade out something for a vegan option at any point in their day is doing something great. And I don't think that it's something that's easy or sustainable if you just go all or nothing overnight. Because again, like look at all the things that I just mentioned that could possibly have animal ingredients. And if it is habits, I think it's just building in new habits. So again, if if you can trade out the milk in your coffee, if you can start with every breakfast, like can you make every breakfast for the next week, next 2 weeks, next month vegan? Is that easy? Or where are these vegan, these easy ways where you can start, can you lower your meat consumption every other day for dinner or something like that? Like, I think it's just like really taking an inventory of where you're consuming animal products in your life and identifying like 3 to 5 areas in a week where maybe you can choose a vegan option and start with that.
That's perfect. So with your clothing line, your shoes, will you be expanding later on down the line into guys' shoes?
Well, I get this question every day. The men out there are really craving a beautiful VOES Chelsea boot. So yes, that is like the first thing on my hit list, is to expand our collection, to take care of the guys out there, give them a nice stylish option. So yeah, definitely want to make a men's Chelsea boot. I do want to create a couple more styles for women. I showed the Chelsea boot. We have this in white and black, and then we do have our like sneaker. So I've tried to make styles that again are like gonna be staples in your closet. The sneaker is actually gender neutral. So we got dudes wearing the sneaker. That one's in white and black as well. And yeah, some flats for women, maybe another style of Chelsea boot, a nice little heel. Just round out the collection. Definitely take care of the guys out there because, you need some stylish footwear. So, yeah, that's next on the radar. Everything I've done has been self-funded, so it has been a bit slower, more organic. Just taking the money that my own personal money, investing in inventory in the collection, and as we grow, we're able to reinvest and create new designs and launch new products. So, yeah,
it's amazing. Where do you see it in, let's say, like in the far future? Obviously, it's going to keep growing and growing. Is it going to be?
Yes.
Go ahead.
We are creating the world's first globally iconic vegan fashion brand. So hopefully in the next 10 years, our icon will be where's the camera? The V ampersand, highly recognizable as, the leading vegan brand. And you can also, I created a charm out of it too. And our branding says, "You are loved." Because again, I just want it to be based on kindness and compassion. And ultimately, for people, if they see this icon, to be like, hey, yeah, you value animals, you value the planet, you value humanity, you're my people, you're my person, and have it be a logo that is easily recognizable and that it will help bring community together.
Just like the swoosh.
See? The Nike of veganism.
Just before we head off, I know that you live in Bali. I also lived in Bali, and I get quite a few questions about favorite places to eat in Bali, and I think you're probably one of the best people to give recommendations of the best places to eat.
This is absolute vegan heaven here. There's so many restaurants in walking distance in Canggu. I can't not say I am vegan babe, just because everything about vegan babe is like so on point. Probably my favorite restaurant in the world is in Ubud, Plant Bistro.
Plant Bistro is so good.
Yeah. And I love Shady Shack. It's, one of the OGs. It's not totally vegan. They do have a few vegetarian options, but I'd say it's 90% vegan, and they have the best vegan lasagna and vegan nachos I've ever had. So I have to include them in the mix.
I would agree with you with I Am Vegan Babe, and I would agree with you with Plant Bistro. I never tried Shady Shack.
Oh, well, when you come back to Canggu, I guess it's in like the heart of where the original Canggu was, and I think it's been there for like since 2018 or something, and lots of greenery. It's like open, airy, and just nourishing bowls. You'd love it. It's very healthy.
Desiree, it's been amazing. Thank you so much for being here. I'm grateful for you.
Me too. Thank you for all you do and for these conversations. And yeah, thank you. Talk soon.